Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 1 hour. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds bilateral meeting with his Singapore counterpart Lawrence Wong. Both sides signed 4 MOUs. Prime Minister calls ministerial roundtable formed between India and Singapore a path-breaking mechanism. Another school shooting shook the US as an incident at a Georgia high school leaves 4 dead. 14-year-old suspect in custody will be charged as an adult. President Biden calls for common sense gun safety legislation. Upsets continue to rule the US Open as world number 1 Iga Swiatek is sent crashing out by Jessica Pegula. Pegula to face Karolina Muchova of Czech Republic in her first Grand Slam semi-final. In Paralympics, India's stellar show continues. Harinder wins first gold in archery. Dharmbir and Pranav Surma also add a gold and silver in the F51 club throw. Medal tally reaches 24. India-Singapore ties have moved on to a brand new chapter with the establishment of the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership today. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Singaporean counterpart Lawrence Wong held a productive meeting at Singapore's Parliament House. Besides agreeing to elevate the ties to Comprehensive Strategic Partnership, the two leaders extensively reviewed various facets of the bilateral relationship. The areas discussed included advanced manufacturing, connectivity, digitalization, healthcare and medicine, skills development and sustainability.
एक्सेलेंसी, गर्मजोशी भरे स्वागत के लिए मैं आपका हार्दिक धन्यवाद करता हूं। आपके प्रधानमंत्री पद ग्रहण करने के बाद ये हमारी पहली मुलाकात है। मेरी तरफ से आपको बहुत-बहुत बधाई और हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं। मुझे विश्वास है 4G के नेतृत्व में सिंगापुर और अधिक तेजी से प्रगति करेगा। एक्सेलेंसी, सिंगापुर केवल एक पार्टनर देश नहीं है। सिंगापुर हर विकासशील देश के लिए एक प्रेरणा है। हम भी भारत में अनेकों सिंगापुर बनाना चाहते हैं और मुझे खुशी है कि हम इस दिशा में मिलकर प्रयास कर रहे हैं। हमारे बीच जो मिनिस्टरियल राउंड टेबल बनी है वो एक पाथ ब्रेकिंग मैकेनिज्म है।
India and Singapore inked 4 MOUs in the field of digital technologies, semiconductor ecosystem, health and medicine and education on Thursday. Up next, we quickly tell you the benefits of these agreements. The MOU in the field of digital technologies will facilitate closer cooperation between India and Singapore in the areas of digital technologies such as DPI, cybersecurity, 5G and emerging technologies such as supercomputing, quantum computing and artificial intelligence. The second MOU was inked on India-Singapore Semiconductor Ecosystem Partnership. Under this, Singaporean companies which are part of global semiconductor value chains are keen to invest in India. Dialogue mechanisms set under this MOU will facilitate their investment in India. The third MOU was related to the field of health and medicine. It aims to promote closer cooperation in the areas of human resource development in healthcare and pharmaceuticals sector. The MOU will complement our efforts to promote Indian healthcare professionals in Singapore. The fourth and the last agreement was signed on educational cooperation and skills development. India and Singapore have active collaboration in the areas of skill development. This MOU will complement those ongoing initiatives. So on your screens, we have a gist of the bilateral meeting that was held between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the leadership of Singapore. 4 MOUs were signed today, and the partnership between India and Singapore has been elevated to the level of comprehensive strategic partnership. Earlier, ahead of their discussions, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi was accorded a warm ceremonial reception at Singapore's Parliament House. Prime Minister held important bilateral meetings. The Prime Minister also signed a visitor's book, and earlier in the shots we saw the Prime Minister was accorded a ceremonial welcome at Singapore's Parliament House, and here we see Prime Minister signing the visitor's book in Singapore. With the signing of 4 MOUs, the relationship between the two countries has further been strengthened. All right, our correspondent Akshay is joining us to get us more. Akshay, good morning. Now, you've just given a gist of Prime Minister's day there and important engagements he had with the Singaporean leadership. You put into perspective for us, how far will it further strengthen the relationship between the two countries, given the priorities of the present times?
Well, thank you so much, Preeti. In fact, we are looking at an unprecedented level of engagement at the government level between India and Singapore. In fact, with the 5th visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Singapore ever since he took office in 2014, the levels between the two countries have only grown. The relationship has strengthened, and we are looking at an unprecedented level of push as far as the government of India is concerned, be it the establishment of India-Singapore Ministerial Roundtable that involves External Affairs Minister, the Finance Minister, Commerce Minister, and other leaders to regularly engage with the leadership of Singapore. In fact, there are 4 ministers from India and 6 ministers from Singapore that are going to be part of this intergovernmental ministerial roundtable, and it is going to be a mechanism to ensure that all the agreements and the memorandums of understandings that are being signed between the two countries to be worked upon in a time-bound manner, establishment of a roadmap of how implementation of these plans are to be done. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself personally has taken a lot of interest in the semiconductor industry, especially in Singapore, given the fact that Singapore has been one of the leaders in the semiconductor technology. In fact, the country has about 56 years of experience, in fact, as far as the semiconductor technology is concerned, and that is what India is eyeing at right now to in fact replicate a similar kind of growth story for India's semiconductor industry. In fact, investment is expected to flow more into India in several domains where the MOUs have been signed, be it pharmaceuticals, healthcare, there is connectivity, digitization, quantum computing, advanced manufacturing of semiconductors, aviation technology. So all of this has to be done in a time-bound manner according to a roadmap that has been laid out. Smart city projects that are being carried out in India also has a lot to learn. They have a lot to learn, in fact, from Singapore, and the way they have implicated they have implemented rather all of these projects in the city-state. So we are looking at regular interaction between the leadership of India and Singapore. Prime Minister himself supervising the kind of growth that takes place between the two countries, and India's Act East policy clearly working on the ground here, especially in the ASEAN region, of bringing the two regions together. So Singapore, a maritime power, especially in the Southeast Asia region, and India being a maritime power in the Indian Ocean region, have a lot of similarities in terms of challenges and the opportunities, in fact, that the two countries can explore together. So the direct engagement at the prime ministerial level is absolutely interesting to see, and especially it is being followed up by the business leaders both in India and Singapore. And Singapore, that was the largest source of India's foreign direct investment in the last financial year, is expected to retain that spot with the kind of engagements that are taking place in various domains of businesses. Back to you, Preeti.
All right, Akshay, I would also want you to evaluate the visit of the Prime Minister, given the fact that you also told us that Singapore is the highest, in terms of FDI, Singapore is the highest contributor. Added to that, 4 MOUs have also been signed with regard to the priorities in the given times for the world to see. Having said that, to what extent can Singapore be a key, perform a key role in India's growth story, in India's aspirations, which the Prime Minister has been very vocal about? Added to that, we've also seen how the relationship between the two countries has been enhanced to the comprehensive strategic partnership. Put all this together, how promising is this relationship, and what kind of role can Singapore play in India's growth story?
Well, Preeti, it's actually a mutually beneficial relationship between India and Singapore. And while we see Singapore as a pioneering country in terms of technology, in terms of advanced manufacturing facilities that are here, it has a lot to gain from India as well, while India has a lot to gain from Singapore. So as far as Singapore's expectation from India is a political stable country that has a lot of potential in terms of skilled labor force, in terms of manufacturing capabilities, natural resources, and ability to in fact be quite beneficial for Singapore in the long run, given the fact that India has been the fastest growing major economy in the world. Singapore does realize that India in the next few decades is going to be one of the largest economy in the world, as it already is. In fact, India being the 5th largest economy, Singapore has a lot of interest in the Indian businesses, in investing in India and in investing in India's growth story. So that is beneficial for Singapore. When it comes to India, India has a lot to learn in terms of smart city technologies, smart city how they function seamlessly, integration of all the aspects of a country and of a city to be functioning as one. Then there is advanced manufacturing that India actually is looking at right now in terms of manufacturing capabilities. It has been inviting businesses with the rapidly changing business models in India and pro-business policies that have been implemented in the country. And when it comes to defense ties, like you have rightly mentioned, that India and Singapore are now strategic allies as well, and they have signed all of these agreements of comprehensive strategic partnership. So both the countries have a lot to gain from each other, but we should not just see it in a way that India is going to gain from this relationship. It is also Singapore that has a lot to gain in the long term from India. India being one of the most important hub that is emerging as a manufacturing hub, especially with Make in India kind of initiatives that have been launched. So yes, it is going to be a quid pro quo kind of a situation here, where both the countries will be learning from each other, will be gaining from each other, and it is going to be both the growth story of Singapore and of India that will be contributed by each other. Back to you.
All right, Akshay, thank you for joining in with those inputs from Singapore. So that was our correspondent Akshay Dongre explaining to us the significance of the MOUs that were signed between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Singaporean leadership. And now we turn focus to other updates in the bulletin. We tell you about Hamas Israel crisis. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Wednesday said that Tel Aviv will only agree to a permanent ceasefire in Gaza that guarantees the border area between southern Gaza and Egypt could never be used as a lifeline for Hamas. Netanyahu repeated his outright rejection of a withdrawal from the Philadelphia corridor in the first phase of a deal, expected to last 42 days, saying international pressure would make it effectively impossible to return. For a permanent ceasefire to be agreed upon after that, Israel would need guarantees that whoever ran post-war Gaza would be able to prevent the corridor from being used as a route for smuggling weapons and supplies for Hamas. Netanyahu also said that Hamas had rejected all elements of a proposal for a ceasefire in Gaza that would help facilitate the release of the hostages.
We're committed to achieving our goals. All three goals: destroying Hamas's military and governing capabilities, releasing all our hostages, and ensuring that Gaza does not become a threat to Israel anymore. And all these require standing firm on the things that will ensure the achievement of these goals. And with God's help, and with our people's will, and with the courage of our soldiers, we'll achieve all goals. And all three of those goals, all three of them, go through Israel's control of the Philadelphia corridor. And it's obvious why. You want to destroy Hamas's military and governing capabilities, you can't let Hamas rearm. It's obvious. So you have to control the corridor.
Meanwhile, Hamas has accused Netanyahu over his statement, saying that Israel's prime minister sought to thwart an agreement by insisting that Tel Aviv will not withdraw from Philadelphia corridor in southern Gaza. Hamas also said that there was no need for new ceasefire proposals for Gaza and pressure should be put on Israel to agree to a U.S. plan that the Islamist group had already accepted. Hamas said it accepted a July 2nd proposal put forward by the U.S. The United States is expected to present a new truce proposal aimed at breaking an impasse between Hamas and Israel. Since U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken's latest tour of the region last month failed to produce a breakthrough, mediators have kept up working-level discussions, and those talks are continuing. The new proposal aims to work out major sticking points behind a months-long impasse in talks mediated by the U.S., Qatar and Egypt, seeking a truce in the conflict between Israel and Hamas. Negotiators are still trying to hammer out solutions to the two main obstacles. The first, U.S. officials said a new draft accord could be produced next week or even sooner, and the revised plan would not be a final take it or leave it offer, and that Washington will continue working towards a ceasefire if it fell through. The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency meeting to address the escalating crisis in Gaza and the West Bank on Wednesday. The meeting was requested by Algeria to highlight urgent calls for a ceasefire, humanitarian aid access, and the release of hostages in the aftermath of the October 7 terrorist attack. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemned the violence. He said there is no safe place in Gaza as nearly 2 million people face displacement and severe humanitarian challenges. At the meeting, Palestinian UN Ambassador Riyad Mansour accused Israel of waging a full-scale war against the Palestinian people.
Israel has unleashed a full-fledged war against the Palestinian people. Israel is seeking to impose a military solution to the conflict by disappearing a nation. There is no denying these facts. From genocide to apartheid, Israel is showing the world its willingness and readiness to use the most despicable means to achieve its colonial aims.
U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, condemned Hamas's brutality and called on the Council to do the same. She criticized Hamas for executing 6 hostages during ceasefire negotiations.
We're doing all we can to bring these Americans home and all the hostages home to their families. The 6 hostages killed this weekend were executed at the same time negotiators were discussing the names of individuals to be released in a ceasefire deal. It calls into question the sincerity of Hamas negotiators, and it reveals yet again the ugly truth about the vile, depraved ideology that Hamas represents, from its massacre of 1,200 people to its weaponization of sexual violence. These latest murders confirm that Hamas is a terrorist organization. I know some members of this council won't acknowledge that, but that's the simple truth.
Prior to a United Nations Security Council meeting, Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Danon, criticized the council for passing 4 resolutions since October 7th without condemning Hamas for their action.
Since October 7th, the Security Council has passed 4 resolutions with no condemnation of Hamas for their crimes. Meanwhile, the General Assembly has passed 2 resolutions. Hamas is never even mentioned in either resolution. They vaguely mention the release of those held captive, but fail to identify the Hamas monsters who took them. Today, I will demand that the Security Council adopt a clear and unequivocal resolution. This should not require negotiations or deliberations. The Council has a moral obligation to adopt a very simple resolution that condemns Hamas, their atrocities, designates them as a terrorist organization, and demand the release of the hostages.
Meanwhile, Israeli army released a video to show a tunnel where the bodies of 6 hostages were recovered. On Sunday, Israeli army spokesman Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari said that 6 bodies were recovered from a tunnel in southern Gaza where they were apparently killed not long before Israeli troops reached them. The shaft leading to the tunnel was located next to stuffed toys and wall art of cartoon characters in a children's play area. Thousands of mourners are on the streets of Jerusalem after the 6 hostage bodies were recovered. This triggered an outpour of grief and rage among Israelis traumatized by one of the most devastating attacks in their country's history. The death of the 6 after nearly 11 months in captivity sparked a wave of protests. The protests are continuing to pressure Prime Minister Netanyahu to bring the hostages back home. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi met with Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan in Ankara on Wednesday to discuss the crisis in Gaza, Libya and Somalia. This is Sisi's first such presidential visit in 12 years. The 2 leaders exchanged handshakes and participated in a photo op before sitting down for a press conference where Sisi spoke of the unity in Egypt and Turkey's position calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. Turkey also has condemned Israel for its war against Hamas terrorists that has devastated Gaza. It sent thousands of tons of aid to Egypt for Palestinians and praised Cairo's humanitarian efforts and role as a negotiator in Gaza truce talks. Erdogan had traveled to Cairo in February, his first trip to Egypt since 2012. Their ties were severely strained for a decade. And now we get to updates on Russia-Ukraine conflict. The UN Nuclear Agency Chief Rafael Grossi visited the Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in southeast Ukraine on Wednesday. The director of the International Atomic Energy Agency and his team inspected one of the cooling towers of the plant that caught fire last month. After the inspection, Grossi said the situation there was very fragile and the plant would probably have to be demolished.
We have a very fragile situation here because of the military operations. I understand also, I was informed that today there was some shelling not far from here. We were able to determine at least that this fire was not caused by a combustion at the base of the cooling tower. This we were able to determine quite clearly.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky ordered a major government reshuffle at a crucial juncture in the conflict with Russia on Wednesday. A total of 6 ministers, including Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba, submitted their resignation. We'll get you more on that, but at present we'll take you back to Singapore, where Prime Minister is on a visit to Singapore. And here we see him being apprised on the semiconductor at an institute in Singapore. These are the visuals from Singapore, where Prime Minister is being apprised. This is as part of his visit to Singapore. And earlier also in the bulletin, we told you about the 4 MOUs that were signed between India and Singapore, further strengthening the relationship between the two countries to a comprehensive strategic partnership. All right, so these are the visuals where AEM Holdings members and staff held a meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and the company is apprising the Prime Minister of the salient features and the important attractions and the highlights. India and Singapore, as we told you earlier, have inked 4 MOUs in the field of digital technologies, semiconductor systems, health and medicine, and education. Now, these 4 areas are critical given the view of the importance in the present times. And we also summarize the benefits of the MOUs that were signed between the two countries earlier in the bulletin. And here we see the Prime Minister meeting the staff members of AEM Technologies, and here he is being apprised at the AEM Technologies premises. MOU in the field of digital technologies was signed between the two countries, and with that we will see both the countries envisaged closer cooperation in the areas of digital technologies like cybersecurity, 5G, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, DPI, to name a few. Also, the second MOU was inked on India-Singapore semiconductor ecosystem partnership. The Singaporean companies, as we know, are part of the global semiconductor value chain, and they, in fact, are keen to invest in India. We also know that Singapore is the largest contributor of FDI in India, and a dialogue mechanism set under this MOU will further enhance and facilitate their investments in India. For our viewers who've just joined in, these are the visuals we are getting for you from Singapore, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a meeting with the leadership of AEM Technologies, and the Prime Minister visited the semiconductor facility of AEM Technologies in Singapore, and here he is being apprised at the facility. A quick photo op of the Prime Minister along with the faculty members, along with the students there at the semiconductor facility in Singapore, AEM Technologies. The smiles there say it all. The way they're keenly listening to Prime Minister talks of the robust relationship between the two countries, which also centers on the people-to-people ties. And here we see Prime Minister in a quick photo op with the faculty members and the students, the researchers at the semiconductor facility in Singapore. The Prime Minister visited AEM Technologies in Singapore, the semiconductor facility in Singapore. As we told you, India and Singapore signed crucial MOUs in the fields of digital technology, semiconductors, health cooperation, skill development, education, and also this is expected to further strengthen the relationship between the two countries. Prime Minister visiting the AEM Technologies facility. This is a semiconductor facility in Singapore, and the Prime Minister is seen interacting with the staff there and the leadership in the semiconductor facility in Singapore. So that was about Prime Minister's visit to Singapore. As we've again told you earlier in the bulletin, 4 MOUs were signed between India and Singapore, further strengthening the relationship between the two countries. Let's turn focus to the other updates that we were tracking in the bulletin. Amid domestic budget squeeze and reports of a freeze on new German military aid to Ukraine, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz on Wednesday said that Germany will not slacken in its military support for Ukraine. Scholz said that Germany has made provisions, struck deals and secured the funding for Ukraine. A German newspaper said the finance ministry would not approve additional application for Ukraine military aid due to budget constraints after European defense stocks fell in mid-August. A German government spokesperson later called the report incorrect and reiterated Berlin's support for Ukraine for as long as necessary. So far, Germany has supplied 4 IRIS-T SLM units to Kyiv. Russian President Vladimir Putin met with Chinese Vice President Han Zheng on Wednesday at the annual Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok, where Han led the Chinese delegation. Both the leaders highlighted significant progress in the bilateral relations, particularly in politics, trade, economy and humanitarian efforts. And just a while back, we told you about Prime Minister's visit to Singapore and how he visited the AEM Technologies office in Singapore. The Prime Minister has tweeted the pictures of the meeting. The Prime Minister said, and I quote him, "The discussions with my friend Prime Minister Lawrence Wong continue today. Our talks focused on boosting cooperation in areas like skilling, technology, healthcare, AI and more. We both agreed on the need to boost trade relations." The Prime Minister, along with this message on his social media platform account X, put forth the pictures of the meeting with Singapore Prime Minister Lawrence Wong. The Prime Minister held bilateral talks with the Singaporean leadership, delegation level talks with the Singaporean leadership, and here up our screens we have the picture of the meeting held between the two sides today morning. Prime Minister along with Singaporean Prime Minister Lawrence Wong. This picture is tweeted by Prime Minister on his social media platform account X. He has talked of how both the sides agreed on the need to boost trade relations. All right. Before this, we told you about the annual Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok, and Russian President Vladimir Putin met with Chinese Vice President Han Zheng. Let's get you more on the economic forum that is currently on in Vladivostok. President Putin also held talks with Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim. Putin expressed his hope for further improvement in bilateral relations between Russia and Malaysia. Putin also met with Serbian Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Vučić. During their discussion, Putin mentioned plans to negotiate a new gas supply contract with Serbia, as the current agreement is set to expire in March next year. Our correspondent Amit Mukarji is joining us to get us more. Amit, good morning. Now we've seen that Eastern Economic Forum is underway in Vladivostok, and Russian President Vladimir Putin is meeting representatives of other countries. Help us understand the significance of this forum, because yesterday Putin did not miss to mention that he is envisaging a grouping which will be free of any sanctions. He definitely referred, he had a veiled reference to the West. Help us understand more on the significance of this forum that is currently in progress in Vladivostok.
Well, Preeti, one must understand that this is a very, very critical meeting which is taking place in Vladivostok, Russia, the far eastern province. And this has the potential to change economic and trade relations across the world in a new way. This meeting again is in the backdrop of several economic sanctions that has been slapped on Russia. And this is an attempt by Russia to kind of look and explore new avenues of trade relations and commerce in the midst of contracted trade relations with Europe. Now, if you look at the entire the country as a country, it actually expands across Asia, with Europe on the western side, and the entire Asia it has access to the entire Asia from the eastern front. Now, this is exactly where this economic forum has been organized, and Russia is looking at improving trade ties with the various Asian nations which have actually stood by it during its war with Ukraine. Now, yesterday, of course, as you rightly mentioned, Vladimir Putin met with the Chinese leaders and also Vietnamese, Indonesian, and a lot of other Asian countries who are participating in this. In fact, there are about 40 countries which are participating in this conference. Apart from Asian countries, we have countries like Egypt, as well as a lot of South American countries as well. Now, today is again critical as far as Indo-Russian relations are concerned. Now, the focus would primarily be on developing trade relations in the maritime segment. Prime Minister had visited Russia earlier in July this year, where a lot of agreements and pacts were signed. And this, again, at this forum, those agreements will be taken forward. Now, India is being represented by Ambassador Vinay Kumar, who is leading the delegation, and a lot of corporates are also participating in it. And today is the day of the 3-day conference where India will be making a lot of representations and in ways of improving ties, private-public partnership with Russia. And primarily, this is again will be focusing on Vladivostok, Chennai route, the maritime route, which is again a very, very critical route for the two countries.
Right.
With the focus on developing multiple, pit stops along Vietnam, Thailand, and other countries. Also, India is jointly developing a maritime hub in Bay of Bengal, along with Russia, and also shipping industry will also get a lot of boost in this meeting.
All right.
Where India is also exploring jointly developing shipping facilities in India.
All right, Amit, we leave it here. Thank you for joining in with those details. All right, horror struck the Appalachian High School in Georgia on Wednesday. One 14-year-old student opened fire, killing 2 students and 2 teachers before surrendering. The law enforcement official said that teenage suspect surrendered immediately and will be charged as an adult. The accused was investigated last year for threatening to carry out a school shooting. The shooting served as a stark reminder of the threat of gun violence in schools and colleges across the nation. Expressing condolences for the victims of this shooting incident, President Biden has called on Republicans to work with Democrats in the U.S. Congress to pass gun safety legislation to help prevent future gun violence in the U.S. The U.S. has seen hundreds of shootings at schools and colleges in the past 2 decades, with the deadliest resulting in over 30 deaths at Virginia Tech in 2007. The White House in a statement said that President Joe Biden had been briefed on the shooting and his administration will continue coordinating with federal, state and local officials. White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre said that school shootings are not normal and called on Congress to pass legislation to ban assault weapons and pass the red flag laws.
This is not normal. Students and teachers deserve to know that their schools are safe. They should focus on learning, not lockdowns. While the President and Vice President have taken historic action to reduce gun violence, more must be done to keep our schools and communities safe. We continue to call on Congress to do something, We need universal background checks. We need to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, require safe storage of firearms.
In a campaign rally in New Hampshire, Vice President and Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris addressed a critical issue, unveiling her bold vision for economic growth. Harris pledged to spark a surge in entrepreneurship, aiming for 25 million new small business applications by the end of her first term, underscoring her commitment to revitalizing the economy. However, the campaign took a somber turn as Harris expressed deep sorrow over the recent Georgia high school shooting, which tragically claimed 4 lives. Describing it as a senseless tragedy, she called for urgent action to address the underlying causes of such violence, highlighting the pressing need for comprehensive reforms.
This is just a senseless tragedy on top of so many senseless tragedies. And it's just outrageous that every day in our country, in the United States of America, that parents have to send their children to school worried about whether or not their child will come home alive. It's senseless. It is, we've got to stop it. And we have to end this epidemic of gun violence in our country once and for all.
U.S. Democratic candidate Kamala Harris has agreed to the debate rules, including muted microphones when a candidate is not speaking, according to sources. The debate, scheduled for September 10th and hosted by ABC News, marks the first face-off between Harris and Republican Donald Trump since Harris replaced Biden on the Democratic ticket following his disappointing performance in June. Is pushing for moments when the mics would be unmuted to allow for direct responses. Now, this change has invigorated the Democratic campaign, and according to recent polls, Harris has now taken the lead over Trump in several national surveys, a shift attributed to her rising prominence. The U.S. on Wednesday filed money laundering charges against 2 employees of Russian state media network RT for what officials said was a scheme to hire an American company to produce online content to influence the 2024 presidential election. Justice Department officials said the 2 employees used shell companies and fake personas to pay $10 million to an unnamed Tennessee company to produce online videos aimed at amplifying political divisions in the U.S. The U.S. Treasury and State Departments also announced the actions targeting RT, including the network's top editor, Margarita Simonovna. U.S. officials said Russia's goal is to exacerbate U.S. political divisions and also weaken public support for American aid to Ukraine in its war with Russia.
We allege that as part of that effort, RT and its employees, including the defendants, implemented a nearly $10 million scheme to fund and direct a Tennessee-based company to publish and disseminate content deemed favorable to the Russian government. The subject matter and content of many of the videos published by the company were often consistent with Russia's interest in amplifying U.S. domestic divisions. In a separate enforcement action, the Justice Department is seizing 32 internet domains that the Russian government and the Russian-sponsored actors have used to engage in a covert campaign to interfere and influence the outcome of our country's elections.
Russian lawmaker Maria Butina dismissed U.S. claims of Russian interference in the 2024 election as pure rubbish. The climax of her statement underscores her belief that the only true beneficiary of the election would be the U.S. military-industrial complex. This assertion comes amid a backdrop of persistent denials from the Kremlin and the Russian Foreign Ministry, both of which have consistently rejected accusations of meddling. Instead, they assert that their focus remains on closely observing the electoral process. In Sri Lanka, the postal voting process for the presidential election commenced on Wednesday. The Election Commission has made postal voting available to over 7,12,000 government officials. Postal voting is also continuing for Thursday and Friday. Commissioner General of Elections in the island, Saman Sri Ratnayake, mentioned that those unable to vote on the specified days can do so at a special postal ballot marking centre, which will be available at the district secretariat on 11th and 12th of September. Elections are scheduled for 21st of this month. All right, our correspondent Amit Farooqi is joining us to get us more from Sri Lanka. Amit, good morning. Now, we told our viewers how the postal voting process has commenced in Sri Lanka. Help us understand the political landscape there in Sri Lanka, and how do we understand the political contest in the island nation?
Good morning to you, Preeti, and good morning to all our viewers back in India as well as the world. Now, primarily speaking, 21st September will be the day when the entire island would go into the polls. But as of now, from starting yesterday until up to today and tomorrow, there's going to be postal voting that will be permitted for all the government employees who are working in the island. Along with them, even the tri-postals as well. Currently speaking, a little bit of an idea for all the viewers is that the island is going into the polls on 21st, and there are 38 candidates in the fray, with the top 3 candidates who are the front runners, namely the incumbent President Ranil Wickremesinghe, the leader of opposition and SJB leader Sajid Premadasa, and NPP leader, leftist leader Anurakkumar Dissanayaka. Right now, today, I'm at the venue where a 4th entity has been planned to be launched, Janajaya Peramuna. This will be led by the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, Mr. Dinesh Gunawardena, and various other ministers who are currently in the current government of Sri Lanka, who have lent support to the president's campaign for a re-election. And this is something, it's going to be a huge change in the paradigm of Sri Lankan politics, because this landmark event would break away the strength of SLPP, which had been in power for the most part of the previous decades. And SLPP, that is Sri Lankan Podujana Peramuna, which was being led by Mahinda Rajapaksa, and which has been its candidate Namal Rajapaksa in this election. Now they would feel that a chunk of their voters might shift with the creation of this new entity, wherein more than 100 MPs, including the Prime Minister and several sitting ministers, are set to join this event. Right now, I'm at the venue where everyone is waiting for the Prime Minister to arrive. The event would commence in another few minutes. I'll pan out here with regard to the kind of for the viewers to get to see here, if my visuals can be seen.
Please continue, Ahmed.
So, given the current circumstances, it is a difficult kind of a thing to predict who would get the more preferential vote. The political system here is that the elections will follow a preferential voting pattern, and the candidate who gets more than 50% of the vote will be elected winner. But considering that there are 3 front runners and with also a smaller candidates from various other parties, there's a possibility that the mandate could be captured and no one could get a 50% clear popular vote. The second round of counting
Ahmed, there is a disruption in your audio. We'll interrupt this conversation here. We'll get back to you again to get more on the electioneering in Sri Lanka. But at present, that was our correspondent, Ahmed Farooqi, joining us from Sri Lanka, explaining to us the political landscape in the island nation. And from here, we now turn focus to sports. Talking of tennis, in a stunning upset, world number 1, Iga Swiatek crashed out of the US Open after losing to Jessica Pegula in the quarterfinals. World number 6, Pegula won 6-2, 6-4 in just under 90 minutes, setting up a semi-final against Karolina Muchova of the Czech Republic. She is the 4th American to reach the semi-finals of this year's tournament in New York, joining Emma Navarro, Frances Tiafoe and Taylor Fritz. It is the first time that she has broken the Grand Slam quarterfinal after 6 attempts, including the loss to Swiatek in US Open 2 years ago. Pegula will face Karolina Markova in Thursday's semi-final match. All right, let's turn focus to Paralympics now. In para-athletics, Harinder clinched the gold medal, while his compatriot Pranav Surma bagged a silver medal in a double podium finish in men's club throw F51. Harinder finished on top with the best throw of 34.92 meters, shattering the Asian record. Pranav, on the other hand, bagged the silver medal with the best throw of 34.59 meters. India scripted history by securing its first ever double podium finish in a track and field event at the Paralympics. The gold medal won by Harinder was also India's first medal in club throw in the history of the quadrennial sporting spectacle. India's Harinder Singh bagged a gold medal in para-archery in individual recurve open event to become the first archer to win a gold at Paralympics. Harinder Singh defeated Lukas Cizak of Poland 6-0 to clinch the gold medal. With this achievement, Harinder became the first and only Indian archer to win a gold medal at Paralympics and secured medals in 2 consecutive editions of the Paralympics. It adds to India's archery success in Paris, where Rakesh Kumar and Sheetal Devi earlier won bronze medal in the mixed team compound event. And Indian President Draupadi Murmu congratulated Harinder Singh on winning gold medal in the men's individual recurve para-archery event at Paris 2024 Paralympics. She said, and I quote, "My heartiest congratulations to Harinder Singh on winning gold medal in the men's individual recurve para-archery event at Paris 2024 Paralympics." Now, this is Harinder's second medal at the consecutive Paralympics and first ever gold medal in para-archery for India. His exceptional performance under tremendous pressure is inspirational. I wish he brings more glory to the tricolour. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also congratulated Harinder Singh for the achievement. He said, and I quote him, "A very special gold in para-archery. Congratulations to Harinder Singh for winning the gold medal in the men's individual recurve open at Paralympics 2024. His precision, focus and unwavering spirit are outstanding. India is very happy with his accomplishment." And India is celebrating Teachers' Day today. This day marks the birth anniversary of first Vice President and the second President of India, Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan. He was a philosopher, scholar and an exemplary teacher. He dedicated his life towards education and shaping up the youth of the country. He famously stated that the end product of education should be a free, creative man who can battle against historical circumstances and adversities of nature. Teachers from ancient times established a deep and abiding tradition of hand-holding, mentoring and inspiring students in their pursuit of knowledge. Throughout India's rich history, teachers have occupied a central and revered position. This day marks their immeasurable contribution. All right, that's it in this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those of you on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app, and you can download the respective QR codes on your screens now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.